right? It's your man Brett with another piece to camera. Because I believe in the intellectual element of skateboarding. I believe in the philosophy of skateboarding. I believe that skateboarding is intellectual. Skateboarding asks you a question. That question is, what are you going to do when you combine yourself, your skateboard, and the environment around you? And to answer that question, you have to intellectually engage. And there is no right answer. There's a very broad possibility of what that answer could be. So you do have to think about it. So skateboarding has an intellectual element to it. You don't have to engage in the intellectuality of skateboarding to do skateboarding. You absolutely don't need to. But you can do. And I've done interviews. I've done all that stuff. I'm choosing to do this stuff. I'm choosing to do this thoughts and ideas about skateboarding stuff. And so one of them that I want to address today is, and for the first time I've made some notes, crikey, is that a proposition was put forward not so long ago that core skateboard magazines and core skateboard media does not represent the skateboard culture and does not represent the reality of skateboard culture, to which I would state, I would put forward the proposition that that is absolutely accurate and correct. Core skateboard media of any sort does not represent skateboard culture. And there's a couple of reasons why it does not. One critical reason is that media in general has never represented reality. Media in general, whether we're talking skateboard media or not, any sort of media, usually represents an extreme end of a spectrum. EastEnders does not give you a representation of what it's like to live in London. Coronation Street is not a real representation of what it's like to live in Manchester or wherever it's set. Okay. Most media is there to make you either wish that you had something that you didn't have, or make you glad that you don't have something that is being represented. It is a representation of an extreme point of view, one way or the other. So skateboard media has always been there representing really good skateboarders. Okay, irrespective of what the actual skateboard culture and the numbers of it are made up from. Now, my basic understanding, and if somebody works in the industry, somebody respectable and somebody respected works in the industry who can verify these numbers or educate me about this, please get in contact. Please let me know. Even just produce a video, I don't mind. But you have to be somebody who actually knows what they're talking about, all right? Like, if I'm going to have a whole load of armchair pundits giving some idea about what they think and they haven't got any figures to back it up, then not amazingly interested. Couple of things I've heard from people in the industry whose facts I respect, because they are people who have come from one of the biggest distribution companies in Europe, interviewed Chris from China at the beginning of 2020. The vast majority of skateboards that are sold are complete setups sold to beginners. There is a very real possibility that around 75% of skateboarders in the UK are young beginner skateboarders. And by beginners, I mean anything from somebody who's just got a skateboard through to someone who's been doing it 1 to 2 years. And we know, with no hate and no judgment, we know that a strong majority of those, a big majority of those, will stop skateboarding for whatever reason. I don't mind or care. I love that they've got involved in skateboarding. All the beginners are welcome. Everybody's welcome. Get involved, get amongst it. but let's start talking about some figures. And one of those is that I reckon, so a couple of years ago, Skateboard GB released some figures saying that there is approximately 200,000 skateboarders, and I don't know what they define in skateboarders, but let's just take 200,000 as a number. There's approximately 200,000 skateboarders in the UK. Now, of those 200,000 then, if we're saying that 75% of them are beginners, that's 150,000 beginner skateboarders, a lot of which are not going to keep skateboarding for more than maybe a couple of years, for whatever reason. Don't mind, don't care, no hate, no judgment, okay? There is a very small possibility that we're then looking at maybe about 21% are over that sort of young age group, maybe a sort of late teens, early 20s, who are competent, who are capable on a skateboard. They can do some stuff. They're down the skate park, they're inspiring the beginners. They're not sponsored. They're not close to being sponsored just yet. But they're competent and they're capable. And that 21%, which equates to about 42,000 people, if the numbers are correct, which I know they may not be, but we're just sort of working on these. They may not be absolutely correct down to the number, but we're talking about 42,000 people roughly. Being generous and being biased, because I am one of them, maybe we're looking at about 2% of the general skateboarding population being in the over 30 category, who maybe were good, maybe were sponsored, maybe were pro, but are not. And I would say the vast majority of that 2% of skateboarders that make up the over 30s group, I'd say the vast majority of those were probably not sponsored at any point, were probably not pro, or maybe got close to it, but probably weren't. A very small percentage of that 2%, a very small percentage of the 2% might well be ex-pro or ex-sponsored skateboarders. Then maybe, if we're lucky, we're looking at maybe 1% of the total population of skateboarders in the UK who are better than competent, but still not sponsored. Yet they're very close to being sponsored. And I mean properly sponsored. I don't mean you've got a discount code to put on your Instagram account. That ain't being sponsored, right? I mean properly sponsored or pro. Okay, there's maybe 1% of the skateboard population who are nearly there. They're close. They're super close. Then, being generous, I think 1% of the total skateboard population are maybe sponsored or pro skateboarders. 2,000. If you can think of 2,000 high-level, professional, high-level sponsored skateboarders in the UK, then I'd be impressed. 2,000 is probably a little bit generous. Maybe we're looking at 0.75%, maybe 1,500. 0.75%. So not even critical mass. Right? 75% of skateboarders are young skateboarders who have not been doing it very long and who can't do it very well, right? Because they haven't been doing it very long. That's all. If I was to pick up the violin for the first couple of years, I wouldn't be able to do it very well because I haven't done it before and I'm a beginner, right? So no judgment on them, no hate on them. Anybody picking up something can't do it very well when they start. So if those numbers are to be extrapolated around the world, that's why I talked about percentages. 75% beginners, about 21% maybe competent and capable, 2% over 30s, 1% nearly good enough to be sponsored, 1% sponsored. That, if my maths is correct, equals 100%. Right? So any core skateboard magazine, if it was going to represent the reality of skateboard culture, if it was a 100-page magazine, or if it was a 100-photo magazine, 75% of those photos, 75 of those 100 photos would be of young beginner skateboarders who can't do anything, who are falling off, who maybe don't even understand that there's a skateboard culture, maybe don't even understand what skateboard tricks are called, maybe don't even know that there's tricks, maybe don't even know that there's pros and sponsors and brands and all this gear. They don't even know because they're just beginners. They're just playing around on a skateboard. They're just getting involved in it for the first time. They maybe know the brand of the board that they've got, and that's it. 75% of the photos in a magazine would be young people not doing anything and not capable of doing anything. 21 of the 100 photos would be of maybe sort of late teens, early 20s people who are competent, who can do some stuff, but you know, at best we'd call them competent, good, probably better than me. So again, no judgment or no hate on them. Just trying to look at some facts and figures. Maybe 2 of the photos in the magazines of this theoretical 100 photo magazine that we're creating here, maybe 2 of those photos would be of some over 30-year-olds doing something. Maybe 1 of those photos would be of somebody nearly good enough to be sponsored, better than the competent lot, better than the 21%, possibly better than probably better than the over 30-somethings. Obviously better than the beginners, but still not quite sponsored yet. And only 1 photo out of 100 photo magazine would be of some sort of pro or some sort of sponsored skateboarder. All right? Therefore, only one interview could be allowed with that 1 pro or sponsored skateboarder. You know, like what sort of perception of reality is it where the only people who have an opinion or get featured in magazines are potentially less than 1% of the total population that engage in that activity? Of course, skateboard magazines don't represent reality. You don't open up a guitar magazine and see that it's 80% full of pictures and interviews with 12-year-olds who have got a cheap guitar for Christmas and who don't know anything about it and can barely put together like some simple Metallica riffs or riffs or whatever, or Black Sabbath riffs. You open up a guitar magazine and it's full of professional guitar players who have played for years and years and have honed their craft and have appeared in bands that you know about or might know about or could go and listen to. You open up a skateboard magazine, every single photograph, nearly every single photograph, especially in a printed magazine, is of somebody famous, somebody good, somebody sponsored, somebody pro, somebody known. All the interviews are with somebody good. The opinions, the expression, the discussion about it is with somebody sponsored or good. It's part of the reason I don't have a huge amount of following on here, on wherever you're listening or watching this at. I'm not a sponsored or pro skateboarder. I can't offer you something you don't have. Okay? Media gives you something you don't have. Something to aspire to, something to look up to, something to reach towards, right? That's why media, any type of media, skateboard media or not, gives you something you don't have, right? And I might explore that again in another video because we're already getting to 14 minutes. Now, of course, I am far too scared to start even talking about the breakdown of skateboarders that are not white males. Absolutely, the skateboard industry is run by white males. I'm not proud of that. I'm not okay with that. I don't know what I'm okay with. What could be done about that? Well, it's capitalism. Anybody is free to start a skateboard company. Anybody is free to start their own media company. Anybody is free to sponsor whoever they want with their brands that they own and run. So for now, I'm not really here. But see, media, yeah? You all love media because media can give you an answer. That's why everyone's got an opinion about skateboarding, because there is no one particular answer. That's why everybody loves media, because it can give them an answer and they don't have to think for themselves. Right? That's why everybody loves 30-second sound bites, because you don't have to contemplate it. You can just take it all in and either agree or become a keyboard warrior and disagree, instead of actually just trying to think for yourself and be critical about an opinion or a piece that's put forward to you. I'm not asking you to agree or disagree with anything I'm saying here. I'm asking you to think for yourself. Absolutely no way does core skateboard media represent skateboard culture. It never has done, and it never will do. It highlights like the top 1% of skateboard culture, the sponsored and pro skateboarders. We do not have skateboard magazines full of beginner skateboarders who can't skateboard. It just doesn't happen. That doesn't sell magazines. It doesn't give you something aspirational to go towards. It doesn't give you something you don't already have. Yeah, that's today's thought for the day. That's Thoughts with Brett on the Skateboarding Show. There's no hate or judgment. There's no hate or judgment. I completely agree that the skateboarding industry is incredibly biased. It's incredibly biased in lots and lots of different ways. Lots of different ways. Not just gender and race, age, most definitely, geographical location, and ability. Skateboarding and skateboard culture is possibly a meritocracy. It celebrates achievement and ability. It celebrates achievement and ability. And there's pros and cons to that. Of course there's pros and cons to that. You know, it can either inspire some youngster or it can really deflate them. Okay? And I've experienced both. And I'm not here to hate on skateboard media or anyone's opinion of it. It was really an interesting idea to reflect on. Yeah, what does media actually do? What does media of any sort do? A lot of media, I mean, that's not to say, you know, skateboard magazines do their bit for the beginners with advice and tips and so on and so forth, but that's maybe 1 or 2 pages. Skateboard media highlights and celebrates ability, just like all other, just like most other medias for most other cultures. Like I say, you open a guitar magazine, it's going to be full of really good professional guitar players. It's not going to be full of complete beginners who've just picked up a guitar for the first time or have only been playing a couple of years. It's just not. Skateboard magazines do not reflect reality of skateboard culture, because when you pick them up, they are not about 75% full of complete beginner skateboarders who can't skateboard yet. Simply something to mull over. Simply something to present as an idea. Yeah, as I say, if you're somebody in the industry who has some half decent facts and figures about what that potential breakdown might be, or somebody at Skateboard GB has got some great breakdown as to what the percentage split of ability is, and therefore, you know, or if you can name more than 2,000 high-level sponsored professional skateboarders, then brilliant. I'd love to hear from you, because then my figures are inaccurate and we need to look at it again. But I mean, I think I might have been generous with saying 2% over 30s. Maybe there's not 4,000 over 30 skateboarders. I don't know, but I'm not entirely sure that there's more than 2,000 high-level sponsored pro skateboarders in the UK, irrespective of their breakdown of gender or ethnicity or race or colour or creed. Irrespective of that, I doubt there's about 2,000 high-level sponsored pro skateboarders. Yet, all our core media is focused on that one area of the whole skateboard culture. Everybody loves ability and everybody celebrates ability. All the brands do. Every brand does. All right? Nobody sponsors a rubbish skateboarder. That's why I have to buy my own kit. All right? So, thank you. Thank you for watching. As always, just a discussion point. That's all. For intellectual dialectics, for searching for truth through logical reasoning discussion. Thank you. See you all later. Bye.